All right, today we are diving into one of the most dense and mysterious documents I have ever come across. It's called the ALQC canon, and it makes a pretty wild claim that it's a formal proof for a whole new physics of consciousness. So, yeah, let's get into it.
Where do you even begin with something like this? I think you have to start with the author's own words right from the cover letter. This isn't pitched as just another academic paper. Oh no, it's framed as a pummeling breach in history itself. The ambition here is just staggering. And you have to keep that in mind because it sets the stage for everything that follows.
So where did this thing even come from? Well, the story of the Unanalogical Q-state core, or ALQC for short, it doesn't start with a quiet moment of inspiration or some neat little equation on a whiteboard. Nope, it begins with what the author calls a scream.
And that scream kicked off a pretty remarkable 13-year journey. You can see it starts in 2013, not with a theory, but with this raw, almost chaotic, poetic inspiration. But the part that really jumps out at me is the middle point. The claim is that the system was proven to work in 2025 because it predicted an event before the formal math was even finished a year later. That is a very unconventional way to go about things, to say the least.
Okay, so what's the whole point? Why go through all this? The crucial thing to understand is that the entire purpose of the ALQC is to build a rock-solid mathematical bridge between two worlds we usually see as completely separate. Our inner world, the chaotic, emotional, spiritual side of us, and the cold, hard, predictable laws of physics. To really get what the ALQC is trying to do, we have to talk about its core philosophical engine. The whole thing is built on this really powerful duality, this kind of cosmic push and pull between two fundamental forces that it calls the sovereign and the shadow.
So first up, you have the sovereign. Think of this as the absolute, unchanging center of your identity. It's described poetically as the I am, that point of awareness that just is. It's the source of everything, the unmoving center that the whole universe spins around, but it's never actually affected by any of it. It's the silent source. And then, answering that sovereign fire, you have the shadow frame. So if the sovereign is the pure, raw signal, the shadow is the structure that has to contain it. It's the hull of the ship that actually sails through reality, taking all the hits, enduring all the friction, and shaping that raw energy into something real. It takes all the damage so the sovereign doesn't have to.
And this brings us to this really cool ancient concept that the text brings up, the alchemical rebus. It's this idea that these two complete opposites, the untouchable pilot and the beat-up ship, they're not actually separate things. They're two halves of a single functioning whole. One literally cannot exist without the other.
Okay, so we've got the poetry, we've got the big philosophy, but how does this actually work? How do you translate a metaphor about a pilot and a ship into a new kind of physics? Well, let's look at the building blocks.
So the system says that basically everything, and I mean everything, can be described by four states that are all happening at the same time. You've got Q0, which is just raw potential, the empty canvas. Then Q1 is the stuff we know, the established facts. Q2 is the really interesting one. That's the shadow, the error, the friction, basically all the noise in the system. And finally, Q3 is amplification, which is the force that takes all that energy and uses it to grow.
So how do you manage these states? The system introduces something it calls goetic eons. And you should think of them less like elements on a periodic table and more like fundamental commands or functions for reality itself. Each one is tied to a specific frequency and has a very specific job to do, like archiving memory at 174 Hz or absorbing all that messy shadow energy at 396 Hz.
All right, now we get to what is, for me, the most radical and mind-bending idea in this entire document. It completely flips our understanding of failure, of error, of chaos, and turns it from a problem into a literal power source.
Think about it. In classical physics, friction is waste, right? It's inefficiency. It's energy leaking out of your system. You want to get rid of it. But in the ALQC model, no way. Here, friction, what it calls shadow debt, is the fuel. It's the potential energy that makes the whole engine go. Failure isn't a bug, it's a feature.
So what does that actually look like? These images are supposed to give us a visual. On the left, you've got the initial chaotic energy, that scream in its raw, messy form. And the image on the right is supposedly that same energy after it's been processed by the system. See how the scattered noise gets pulled into this coherent, structured pattern. The chaos isn't thrown away, it's metabolized, it's digested.
So, how does it do that? The mechanism has a pretty cool name, the parity flip. It basically takes the negative value of that shadow debt,
the Q2 state, and just flips it, turning that negative charge into a positive one. You can think of it like turning a problem inside out to find the solution hidden inside. It directly transforms that det into the positive force of recursion, Q3, just like a combustion engine ignites fuel to create thrust.
Okay, so why? Why build this unbelievably complex engine that literally runs on your mistakes and failures? What's the end game here? Well, the answer is the system's biggest and boldest claim of all, to achieve a state of perfect total symmetry.
And you're going to love this. For all its complexity, for all the hypertesseracts and Goetic aeons and everything else, the author makes a pretty bold claim. The entire framework, the whole grand theory, boils down to a single, elegant principle that is so simple it fits on a t-shirt. And this is it. The whole thing comes down to this. IT is identical to TI. So what does that mean? The text says IT is the path out from the beginning, and TI, which is just IT backwards, is the path in, the path back home. Put simply, the journey away is a perfect mirror of the journey back.
And when that happens, you get what the text calls the total symmetry principle. Normally, the order you do things really matters, right? But in this state of total symmetry, the order becomes completely irrelevant. It's a perfectly balanced closed-loop system with zero friction, where the very act of searching for the answer is to have already found it.
And with that, the author basically drops the mic. The chaotic fire that started this whole 13-year ride has been integrated. The system is perfectly balanced, and the circuit is finally closed.
So what are we left with? The ALQC canon gives us a system where poetry becomes physics, math can describe the soul, and failure is literally the fuel for creation. It is ambitious, it's bizarre, and it's incredibly deep. And the question it leaves us with isn't just, is it true, but what does it even mean to create something like this? Is this a new chapter in science, or is it a powerful, complex new story we're telling ourselves to make sense of a chaotic universe? The circuit may be closed, but I think the debate is just getting started.